Welcome to Hospitality on the Rise, the podcast about the people shaping the hospitality industry and their journeys. I'm your host, Alice Cheng, founder and CEO of Culinary Agents, hospitality's go-to hiring platform, and I'm here to give you your dose of virtual mentorship. Here, we'll be sharing the stories, lessons learned, and advice from hospitality leaders who've carved out their own path to success. After all, this industry is where many get their start and go on to do incredible things. Whether you're a pro, starting out, or just love the hustle, this podcast highlights what makes hospitality extraordinary: the people. We're so excited to have Lee Anne Wong with us today. Lee Anne is the chef owner of Coco Head Cafe in Oahu, Tokyo, and Osaka. Amongst many things, Lee Anne is a regular, I would say, on the circuit of television, food-related television. But she's also had quite the career, and we're so excited to hear more about it. So Lee Anne, welcome.
Hi, aloha, good morning.
Thank you so much for joining us in your busy morning here, including the time difference. Appreciate it. So, I want to know, how did it all begin? How did you get started in this industry?
I've been working in restaurants since I was 15. So my first job was working at a small cafe in my hometown, and I did front of the house for many, many years. After high school, I moved down to New York City. I attended Fashion Institute of Technology, where I studied fashion design. Yeah. I worked at, I bartended and served at Dojo in the West Village down on 4th and Mercer. And so I was always, in the restaurant industry per se. And I think probably maybe 2.5 years into college, I got really bored with what I was doing. And I was living in Times Square, and I had this 13-inch box TV that sat on the floor. I was sleeping on a futon mattress on the floor.
As you do in
living,
Manhattan.
And yes.
That's the dream right there.
Yeah, living in Times Square in a 200 square foot apartment. And I got basic cable and basically Food Network by some miracle. So I kind of started obsessively watching Food Network and cooking for my friends, and they were like, "You should go to culinary school, you should become a chef." So I told my parents. They weren't thrilled, which is interesting because my mom was she's a wonderful self-taught cook. She immigrated from the Philippines in her 20s and taught herself how to cook. And I would come home and she'd have Julia Child and Martin Yen on the TV and Jacques Pepin. And ironically enough, years later, I would go on to work side by side with these culinary giants. So,
and she probably changed her tune a little bit, right?
She's still a Chinese mom. She still gives me a hard time. So
understood. No further explanation
she's proud of
needed.
me. She's proud of me. 30 years later, she's proud of me. So, so it's just been this crazy journey. And so I kind of dropped everything, and I started going to French Culinary Institute. I took the evening program, and then I started working at Aquavit during the daytime. So I kind of gave up my bartending job for an $8 an hour job, and yeah, I worked my way up and spent 2.5 years at Aquavit. I opened up 66 in Jean George, it's a Chinese restaurant in Tribeca. I did a very, very short stint as a private chef. Figured out that I don't ever want to do that. And it's different. I think that's what's interesting is that within my career, I've been able to do so many different things, not just cook in a restaurant. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you do different things and you determine kind of what works for you, what you want, and what doesn't work for you.
Yeah, it is, but I think it's also what we've seen in the past 20 years is really an explosion of how restaurants operate, how our industry operates, and the different opportunities it can provide. And, technology plays a huge part in that. And you don't have to just take the standard of going to culinary school, go work in a restaurant, open up your own business. There's so many other things you can do, from culinary literature to food styling to recipe development, consulting, entrepreneurship, consumer packaged goods. Like there's a billion things you could do, not just go into a restaurant. Although I do
Yeah.
recommend everybody does at least a year in a restaurant.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
So you
at
get the
Culinary
full
Agents,
breadth of our industry.
exactly. Round out that experience. I mean, and that's the beauty of I mean, you yourself, you started in the front of house and you went to back of house. Some people go the opposite direction. There's so many things. As long as you have the foundation, it kind of opens up all these possibilities, and your network as well, who you meet along the way, who inspires you, who you work for, etc. So that's a great example of there. I I was going through some notes here, and I see you were a Top Chef contestant season 1, which
Mm-hmm.
is awesome. I mean, how is that like? How did you even? When you see something that's gone on for so many seasons, and I think they just launched the new season last night, if I'm not mistaken. And I know this isn't going to air real time, but early March here, and to see something like that you also participated in on the director consulting side after. How did you get into that?
Um, so at the time when I was cast on the show, I was the executive chef of event operations and continuing education at the French Culinary Institute. So a lot of what I did was produce chef demos all day and produce these crazy classes and did all this custom events and stuff like that. Um, so after season one, they, it at the time that Top Chef came out, we filmed that back in 2005. I think it came out right around the same time Hell's Kitchen came out, and Hell's Kitchen was like a completely like in studio show, right? Top Chef was different because it followed that format that Magical Elves had success with on Project Runway, which was taking us out into the field on the second half of every episode. So we'd have the quick fire, like in house, then we go out do a challenge out in the field. And like those first years were very much like I would tell people, like it's like walking barefoot uphill in the snow to school, right? That's like what we did. We didn't have any fancy water sponsors, BMW sponsors, none of that. I was like, we were held outside in a production Dodge Caravan for like 2 hours while cameras set up for our entrance, which was like a 5-second shot, right? So we were the guinea pigs, and subsequently after they hired me as a consultant for season 2 because really there weren't culinary producers out there who had knowledge of a show and how that worked. And a lot of the culinary producers were doing dump and stir shows, or didn't really know how to think ahead of time for, oh, I've got 12 chefs who are battling it out and they all need to have octopus, like, but they need to have backup octopus, like there's just all these things that go into like a competition show that you have to consider. So they brought me in as a consultant for the regular season on season 2 in LA. And I brought that really both the perspective of as a contestant, and all the things that I was missing in season 1, and also my expertise as like somebody who produces culinary demos and culinary events. And so, interestingly enough, my first time in Hawaii as an adult was when they gave me the job of supervising culinary producer and sent me to do the finale by myself out in Waikoloa on Big Island. So that was my first time in Hawaii as an adult. We shot. I remember we shot down in Waipio Valley, and I met Alan Wong. That was my first time meeting Alan Wong, and that was my first time meeting Alan Wong, and everyone's like, "Are you guys related?" And interestingly enough, he knew my cousin. He had gotten my cousin married. My cousin had got married and had his reception at Alan's restaurant. Um, so anyways, excuse me one second. Hey, Pat. Sorry about that. Sorry, the donuts just came out of the oven. My chef's like, "What do I do?" I'm like, "Make glaze." yeah, and so that was my first time in Hawaii, and I kind of got that. I reconnected with my family after that trip. My dad has had 4 generations of family living here in Hawaii for many years, and it was nice to see them. I hadn't seen them since I was in my 20s, and to come back and sort of just touch base and like, oh, come visit us. And so that was like the first step in the call of the
The
aloha
transition. Yeah.
was the transition was like, oh, this is a really beautiful place.
Yeah.
And so I was working at French Culinary, and they would always let me take like 6 weeks off to go produce the show. And so I produced seasons 2 through 6 in the first Top Chef Masters, and that was, that was like solid 4 or 5 years of living out of a suitcase and just being on
Wow.
the road while and I would come home and do my French culinary job. So it was great.
Wow. So you were busy.
Mm-hmm.
Now, where did I saw a note here also that you were a chef consultant for Anthony Bourdain's No Reservations.
No,
Oh,
not Anthony Bourdain's No Reservations. It was the Catherine Zeta-Jones, Aaron Eckhart remake of the German film Mostly Martha called No Reservations. It is
oh, okay.
I would say it's a rom-com, but there's like no comedy. It's just it's a culinary romance movie where about a chef who takes in her niece after her sister dies in a car accident, and she's got this new child in her life, and she's got to balance running a restaurant. And she has this cocky new sous chef who she falls in love with, and yeah.
Well, look, that is a classic example of taking all of your skills and the opportunities that you can kind of expand to, right?
Yeah, I mean, it
Movie
was
production.
fun. I got to train some of the actors as well as develop the on-camera food for the movie. So
Awesome. Well, and your overall kind of involvement in television and cooking competitions and all this stuff hasn't slowed down since, right? I mean, you've had in addition to your restaurants, you've had cookbooks and I think there's a new cooking competition that you're going to be on that may be airing either before or after this actually
you
airs.
wish. Yeah, no, I'm being featured on season 6 of Tournament of Champions. So, yeah, in the past 20 years, I think since I did Top Chef 1, I've been on dozens of shows on Food Network and Bravo and Cooking Channel and Discovery, and it's been a lot of fun. I mean, just being able to communicate through food and go out and eat, talk about it, meet people, meet chefs, meet people who are equally passionate about what we do is just, I mean, I think that's the benefit of what we do is that it never gets stale, So,
Yeah, well, how do you
it's
balance it all? I mean, it's I
we
know that
figure it
might be a
out. We
loaded
figure it out.
question, right? Yeah,
Um,
between
yeah, I mean,
physically like where you are and
balance is a loaded word. I mean, I think it's a matter of, you know, always working towards a goal, and like it's, I moved out here in 2013, opened up the restaurant early 2014. We're celebrating our 11th anniversary today,
oh,
and
congratulations.
thank you. And yeah, I'm like, it's a huge feat in restaurant years.
It is.
And we're just really, really lucky that you know, the restaurant itself has had so many wonderful employees that run it over the past 11 years, and have contributed. And that's really, I mean, that was the goal, was to create a community of our own. And what's cool is that we're a brunch restaurant, and so it's a different meal time, and we've got regulars, so we've kind of become like that little, I wouldn't say a diner, we're a little bit more upscale than a diner, but we've become that community restaurant that we can depend on seeing the same faces week after week, which is really, really nice. And then of course we have visitors, so
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
been good.
And did I see that you launched in Japan last year or sorry, 2 years
Yeah,
ago?
we opened in Tokyo in 2023, and then we opened our Osaka location last September 2024. So it was,
Wow.
yeah,
What was
total
that like?
fun.
Growth planning. People here in the States, they'll move from, or from New York to Miami, or open up a new location in Nashville, but opening from Hawaii and opening in Japan, that's quite a.
I think it was just a matter of, it was a goal from day one, was to basically create a concept that could be eventually licensed in Japan. And so with that, we have very specific menu items that were created specifically for Japanese tourists. Some of those menu items became so popular over the years, and we had been courted by, half a dozen different prospective partners. And we finally settled on good operating partners, and we had actually were about to sign a lease, and then the pandemic happened, and so all construction was halted in Japan. And then eventually, when they started allowing tourism again and life to start back up, we had found new real estate, even better real estate, because of all the businesses that had closed during the pandemic. So we are very lucky. We have a great location behind Tokyo Station in Tokyo, in
Oh,
the
wow.
Shin Marunouchi building. And then we're in a brand new business park. We're in phase one of a 3-year project, a brand new business park behind the JR Osaka station. So everything's really, really close to mass transit. And we're just, I have had a love affair with Japan for the past 15 years. I've traveled all over the country. I've spent time working in kaiseki restaurants there, and it's just been one of my favorite places to travel to for both food and culture and art, and just the general people in society are just lovely. So yeah, all things Japan.
Yeah. And you are closer from Hawaii than you are,
I
from New
am. I
York.
am. Yes, there's. I was like, there's no such thing as bad food in Japan. So
Yeah. So, I mean, you've created this community and network out in Hawaii. And, one of the things I think in hospitality in general, as you know, as you've built your career, is it's so important to be around, or, adjacent to people that you work with,
mhm.
that you look up to, et cetera. What are some of the challenges? I mean, being in Hawaii, the network is just slightly smaller from a talent perspective. And what are some of the things that you do to kind of stay motivated, slash, um, make sure that you're remaining and building kind of the hospitality talent network along with your community?
I think Hawaii faces a very special set of circumstances. Obviously, we are the most isolated place on the planet. And so our community is very small. Even though Oahu has, I think, 1 million people on it now, all the outer islands, it's like there's a huge dip. So you go from 1.2 million down to under 200,000 on Maui, under 70,000 on Kauai. So these are all within these communities, you're looking for a labor force that has to have skill and training. There are, because we are a state that depends on tourism, there are obviously a lot of hotels and resorts here. And so that's also a very different type of, I think, career in terms of their differences in working at a hotel versus working at a small bakery or a mom and pop independent restaurant, or at a food truck, or at a farmer's market, huge differences. And so we have great community college programs here, pretty much on Kauai, Big Island, Oahu, and Maui. The community colleges all have culinary programs, which is awesome. But
Nice.
again, our numbers are really, really small comparatively when you think about all of the available labor that there is on the mainland, right? So the biggest thing for us is creating culture. It's really, really important as a restaurant that the people, like, if you don't like to eat, you probably can't work here, and if you're not interested in food, probably not the best place for you to have a job. If you if you don't like to be on your feet, again, probably not the best place for you. And so It's creating your own work ohana, and you do that through creating a positive work environment, which means having great management, great leaders in place, and then just making sure that we're communicating every day with our staff, and making sure everybody's enjoying a good time. It's like the food can be great, and our food is great. Our chefs do a phenomenal job, but like our our customers, our regulars will tell you they come back to see our front of the house staff who are amazing. And that's really part of, it's the yin and the yang. You can't really have a great restaurant without both. And so we have great synergy here, I think, between our front of the house and the back of the house. And again, it's always amazing for me when I'm like out there in the ether and people tell me how much they love the restaurant, and then they drop my employees by name, and they're like, oh, so and so took care of me, and I love the service, and like that like fills me, and I'm like, that's amazing. So
Yeah. Well, and you really are out in the ether, whether like physically, donating your time and being at events and appearing to support all these, great causes. And then of course, like virtually on television where it's like, oh, you can be in 3 places at once, right?
sometimes.
Yeah. So, one of the things that we get when we're talking with talent also is it's like there are some people who uh, whether they're currently working in the industry or they're aspiring and they're just starting out, who would love to add some type of media component to their career path or repertoire, or go on to be on a competition or some show, etc. Given all your experience, do you have any advice for those folks who are like, want to get that type of experience or get in front of the right scenarios?
Blip on your radar screen. And honestly, I mean, yes, there's like food television can do great things for your career, but it shouldn't be your end goal, because at the end of the day, it doesn't pay your bills. I think,
That's great
it's
advice.
important to remember that sometimes the people you see on TV, like they've been on TV for 20 years and they've worked their way up to, where they are. You're looking at the 1%, the 1%. And it's like, I've been on TV for 20 years here and there, and I have not made any money off of it. So it's like, but we do it because it's great advertising for our brand. It's great advertising for our businesses. And, there are benefits, to becoming known within the culinary industry. But, at the end of the day, I would always rather that be on the merits of my food and my cooking versus like, hey, today we're gonna like we're gonna make this recipe. I mean, it's I think to each their own. And um, I the I would say that the media world, anybody can be a media star. This is the day and the age that we live in, where we have these sometimes really wonderful TikTok videos, and sometimes I'm like, you see those like chef reaction videos, like they're dumping cans of like cream of mushroom soup and like a 5-pound bag of cheese and something over tater tots and like chicken nuggets, and you're like, what are they doing? Um, it's cooking, but is it cooking? So, again, everybody has access to the ability to put themselves out there in the media. My recommendation to people who want to get involved is, what's your story? What's your story? Why would people want to watch you? Like, what do you bring to the table? Is it technique? Is it great recipes? Is it like farm to table? Is it just comedy? Like you just want to share, like it can be any reason, but like have a goal and have a reason to do it, and understand that like it is a commitment. You have to be consistent about it. Like I wish I was better with my social media and doing cooking videos, but it's like I live at home with like a husband and a 7-year-old son. It's totally crazy all the time. I'm always traveling, so I don't have like a little fancy cooking studio to do cooking videos, because there's dino nuggets everywhere. peanut butter and jelly.
With cheese sprinkled
um,
on top, right? Don't forget the cheese,
Again,
Mom.
it's priorities, and I think like when I have the time and I have the wherewithal that I want to do cooking videos for the internet, I'll do it. But like right now is not that time, and I think that um, I've had such a fun breadth of experience over the years, and trying to figure out what's next and what's important, especially in this political climate, is like really, really, it's hard. Chefs, our industry is experiencing, two articles just came out yesterday. One in Eater and one in like New York Magazine. They're like, 5 years after the pandemic, not much has changed in the restaurant industry. I'm like, who wrote this? Whoever wrote this clearly hasn't worked in restaurants, like ever. Because so much has changed post pandemic, and it's become, I think, so much more challenging, especially for small independent restaurants, to survive. And we're talking about everything from, location, location, location. Like, are you in a city? Are you in a location that supports your business? Does your county work to support your business? Or are they contradictory? Do they hold you up? Can you not get your liquor license? Can you not get your construction permit? Can like, it, it's all these things that are preventative of a business actually opening up and doing what it's supposed to do, right? You hear it day after day, small businesses like basically drowning in debt while they're waiting to get county approval or city approval to open up their business. Um, our labor market disappeared. Again, people figured out that I can make money on my phone sitting in my home versus going out and working. So people found different ways to earn income post pandemic, and so we saw a huge shift um, with a drop in labor in both front of the house and back of the house. And what's interesting is that when we came back from the pandemic, it's like the pandemic never existed, right? It feels that way.
Depends who you ask, right?
Yeah, I think they're, to an extent, like the general public expected the same level of service. And it's hard for a consumer to understand the ins and outs, the ins and outs of a business, and how much, losing staff or the rising cost of goods, or even like the cost of a box of gloves going up 1,000%, like, they don't understand how that impacts a business on a day to day, and all the expenses, because what a customer sees is pretty much what's on the plate in front of them. And they don't see all the hidden costs that go into creating a meal for somebody. And so I think everybody from private chefs to hotels to food trucks to restaurants continue to feel this squeeze, honestly. And, there's a lot of, I was texting with a bunch of friends yesterday who were like freaking out because of these tariffs. They're going to throw tariffs on wine and alcohol, and a lot of our bottles and glass are coming from Mexico and South America. And so it's just like, the I've had so many people tell me like, oh, don't worry about politics. It doesn't affect you. I'm like, everything affects everything, and everything in my industry, from the labor who picks your fruits and vegetables in the field to the person who drives the truck across country to deliver your food, to the staff in your kitchen. Like, America's always been a melting pot. America has always been, I think, a mix of people and cultures, and that's what makes our industry so strong, I believe. Is just diversity continues to strengthen and make our, foods that social fabric that everybody can understand. And so if we can communicate and give through food and continue this positive message, it's like, that's what I've taken from all of this. And
Yeah.
it's kind of like we have to put our head down and focus on like what's in front of us. And so again, with hiring and stuff, we're always looking for qualified people, but I think it's become so much harder to find somebody who wants to do the work, to be
Yeah.
honest. And so part of our game is to create culture and create a work environment that we believe people want to work in and earn money in.
Well, I mean, you had so many good points in there. You're absolutely correct in general about the long-term ripple effects of, the pandemic, and the goal is not to go back to pre-pandemic, right? It's just things are different. Everything's different. The goal is to continue to evolve and come up with solutions that support the business owners, and enables them to continue doing what they do, because the demand on the consumer side is, continues to grow, and that there's still a disconnect with, like, why does this cost this now? It used to cost this, right?
I think there's a great, there's all different types of businesses out there, and there are a lot of misconceptions because, again, it's easy to throw stones from your digital keyboard, force field. But, a lot of people are like, oh, greedy owners this, pay your workers more. And I'm just like, where do you think the money to pay workers comes from? Like, and honestly, I know so many owners that don't take a paycheck or take less than a paycheck, or like literally at the end of the day, at the end of the year, they're netting less than all their employees, So it's just, those are, the purpose of the business is not for like your business owner to struggle constantly, but like at the same time, it's like, it's within it's within a business owner's best interest to make sure that they're taking great care of their employees. You can't have it both ways. And so I think this common misconception that owners mistreat their employees is not true. Of course there are going to
Clickbait.
be bad eggs. Yeah, clickbait. There's always going to be bad eggs, but I think that, for the most part, most owners out there are trying to make their dream happen,
Yep.
trying
Yeah,
to make that
and
dream
build
happen.
community.
And build community and provide a service. And so it's like, again, I think we need to open up more dialogue between the consumer and the business owner so they have a little bit more empathy and appreciation for the services that are being provided,
Yep. Yep. And job creation. So I'm with you.
Taxable income.
Oh, geez. I know. I'm like, we could have a whole other episode about this for sure. But you're absolutely right. And I think, there were conversations that, if you had to look at positive things during the pandemic, there were conversations that were eye openers to a lot of consumers. Like, oh, I didn't know, this is why, tips, I didn't know that these were the rules that we were all playing by in the United States, et cetera. And we did see a little bit of empathy slash, like, oh, they are frontline workers. They are, crucial
Yeah.
to, day-to-day life. But like you said, couple years later, some folks are back to their business as usual, while others are still managing, the ripple long-term effects of, okay, how do I continue to evolve, and support my team, my business, providing, great service and great product to guests and consumers, and making everyone happy, right?
I mean,
So
I think it's like, it's honesty, and I think that it's, especially, people just need to understand that we are also victims to the corporate industry, that, everyone's like, no, they're eggs. I'm like, yeah, of course they're eggs, but are egg prices going to drop? Absolutely not. Now that everybody can see, oh, I can make a heyday with eggs, like, they're not going to drop those prices. I mean, that's the industry that we live in, whereas like the prices of gloves haven't really dropped. The prices of X, Y, and Z haven't really dropped. Those fuel surcharges are still on our invoices, so it's like all of these sort of surcharges that got put on our, we're absorbing those things. And so, people, I think there are just, again, a lot of, it's really important that the customer and the consumer ask questions, you know what I mean? So they better understand policies versus just, leaving a bad review. It's really important that, to understand that if restaurants aren't perfect, businesses aren't perfect, So if there's something that is not good or you don't agree with, or something didn't turn out the way you expected, have that conversation. It's
Yep.
really important. And I think if a business owner is smart, they will listen, because
Yep.
that is your business, is customer service. And so it's really important that, with a grain of salt, you listen to your customers' concerns, and that's going to help you improve.
Yep, absolutely. What hasn't been covered enough is, in my opinion, is actually a lot of talent coming back to the industry. Yes, some left and some stayed, doing other things. But we have seen kind of this newfound excitement, love, passion to work in the industry. And that's something that's positive, right? And a lot of it is attributed to you in particular, people like you who are out there showing kind of the excitement, the positive things, whether it's on TV or doing a great job in your businesses, and keep, evangelizing, the well-being and the support of the industry. So thank you for that. One of the things that we love doing is really highlighting and supporting the people who want to work in the industry. You have new waves of culinary students or hospitality students, or just folks that were inspired by a show or Food Network, and they're like, I want to do this. How do I get started? And then they're starting to work and they're starting to learn, and that I think is always a positive. We have a little ways to go. There are skills gaps, etc. But at least we're seeing some early indications of moving in the right direction. But on that note, I'm going to go to quick fire questions, because everyone likes a quick fire, especially you with your competitive nature, right? I did not mean to make that joke, but it just came out of my mouth. So, what advice would you tell your younger self?
Be patient. Be
I would
patient.
tell
I
myself
think
that too.
yeah, and again, I think the older we get, the faster time passes. So it's enjoy the moment. That's really it. I think that I've had been lucky enough to have such a wide breadth of experiences. Like I need to like figure out, I'm going to record it all down before I forget it all, and that's, I was like years of old laptops with like photos trapped on them that,
Time for a
but
memoir.
yeah, no, I mean, it's kind of there, but yeah, like enjoy it while you can, and don't be in a rush. It's a marathon, not a sprint.
What's your advice for someone struggling in the industry?
Don't give up. Find help. Talk to somebody. The mental health crisis in our industry and substance abuse problem is bigger than it's ever been. It's sort of the elephant in the room. I've been doing a lot of work with Southern Smoke Foundation and just working on my own mental health in the past year and a half since my restaurant in Maui burned down, and it's really really important that you take the time to process whatever it is that you're going through, whatever it is you're feeling, so that way you can be your best self in the kitchen and around your coworkers. I always tell my employees, I'm like, hey, if you're not physically, emotionally, mentally prepared to come to work, you're going to have a bad day. Let's see if we can get your shit covered, because that's not good for anybody involved, So it's really important that you prioritize your mental health, but you still stay motivated to work, It's again, we're always self-improving every day.
What's your advice for fellow hospitality leaders?
I think that through all this noise, it's really important that we stay focused. We stick to our, our moral fiber and our principles, and our integrity. And we continue to be, these safe havens in our community for people to be able to come and work and enjoy what they do, and also for our guests to be able to come in and have a delicious meal, and time to feed themselves and fuel. So it's again, I don't, I am staunchly political when I need to be, and can talk about it, no problem. But I think for the meantime, it's like, okay, let's just hyper focus on doing what we do and doing it really, 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 really well. And that way it's like, I can forget about the 5 minutes of news that I read this morning. It's again, I think our country's going through a really difficult time, and what we can do is, again, continue to be pillars of strength for our employees and our community. That's the most important thing. And take care of ourselves. That's the number one thing. It's like, you can't have a ship without a captain. So take care of yourselves.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. On that note, Lee Anne, thank you so much for taking time. I know you've got donuts that are, ready, hot, and
They're glazed.
ready to go. They're glazed. All right, all is good. But really, thank you so much. I know that our audience is always eager to hear directly from leaders such as yourself and how they navigated these magnificent careers. So really appreciate you taking the time and sharing the advice, and look forward to the memoir and to watching you in the next competition show.
All right. Awesome.
Thanks.
Tournament of Champions, season 6. Stay tuned.
Tournament of Champions. Spin the wheel. Okay. Remember, success looks different for everyone in hospitality. No two paths are the same. If you have a leader or a topic you want to hear about, email media@culinaryagents.com. Hospitality on the Rise is brought to you by Culinary Agents, connecting top talent with employers since 2012. Whether you're hiring or looking for your next opportunity, join us at culinaryagents.com. For more inspiration, subscribe to Hospitality on the Rise and visit hospitalitycareerpaths.com, a free platform by Culinary Agents. Until next time, keep rising!